What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Big Five Pod, episode number 101. And of course, even though he left the screen, he is Jake Copestick. I am Kyle Morello, and we're the Big Five Pod, and we're very happy to be back here bringing you guys regular season action once again. Cope, about a week and a half since the last release. I know weren't feeling well. So first of all, how are you feeling? And then second of all, how are you feeling about this season the first couple weeks?
Yeah, I'm a lot better, and I feel like I got to take an extra day because I sound horrible when I get sick, and I sound all congested. So nice to take a couple more days to get back and sound like a normal person and not like I'm clogged up to no end. But yeah, Big Five play's been good. Nice that it's back. It's just quick now, and it's kind of abbreviated as years past that you play one or two games, and in the blink of an eye, it's like, oh, it's almost done. But games have been really good. Only two blowouts we saw are at the hands of a team that we'll talk about a little bit. But other than that, every game's been competitive. You were at a game last night. We were at the Temple Drexel game. That was a good one. So all good stuff so far. Season rolls on. Feels like we've been in the middle of basketball season forever. It's not even been a month. These teams have
No.
played like four games. So good to be back. Good to be back.
Yeah, great to be back, and we definitely have a lot to go over. So we will get right into it. And this season's first edition of Cope's Quick Hitters, because we didn't have one last time because we got straight to the games. We got a little bit of other administrative stuff that we got to go over, player news too. So Cope, you know what to do. Grab that basketball. Let's run the break. Quick hitters. Give it to me.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, I had to break the basketball back out again. Maybe I'll actually take this thing and put up some shots and not just hold it in my hands as I talk about this stuff. But finally, Villanova's hired an athletic director, former Oregon Deputy Athletic Director, Chief Operating Officer Eric Rodel, named Vice President and Director of Athletics at Villanova. He's going to start in January of 2025, replacing Mark Jackson, who took over at Northwest, who took the job at Northwestern in late August. Rodel is a Villanova alum, was a tennis captain when he was there. He also had a pretty lengthy career at Temple, and over his career at Oregon, been a sport administrator for men's basketball, which is huge because he might have to make a coaching change at the end of the season, potentially. But you look at NIL, fundraising, capital projects for facilities. He's pretty much had a hand in everything in an athletic department in athletic leadership. I'll put it that way. So strong connections at Nike are like had a hand in hiring Dan Lanning. There's a lot to like with his track record at not only Temple but Oregon as well. Oregon, they got the number one team in football. Dan Lanning looks like a home run hire. They kind of have whatever NIL money they want. Like seems to me like a really really good hire and a local guy at that. Kind of hard to see a Villanova hiring somebody who doesn't have ties to the school, so they bring back one of their own as they typically do in a lot of different sports, and they bring in Eric Rodel. So welcome home as he comes back from the West Coast to the East Coast. Some player news now. So Villanova's Matt Hodge has been ruled ineligible for the 2024-2025 season. This is after an appeal to the NCAA as well. So he spent his childhood in Belgium before he came over to the States and went to St. Rose High School in New Jersey. And there's a 10-7 rule of the NCAA. You need to take 10 core classes, seven of which need to be like your math, English, science, and yada yada. So he comes over from Belgium, doesn't have any trouble in school, spends 2 years at St. Rose. From all accounts, is in good academic standing. Right now at Villanova is in good academic standing, and he's still ruled ineligible. Not really sure what to make of this when you see, I know there's I think believe he's a Bosnian international, Matej Bosnic at Wichita State. You see guys like that get ruled ineligible that are, internationals that have spent all their schooling over there. And it's like, well, how come those guys get to have such a speedy process? But you have a guy in Matt Hodge who came over from Belgium, did not showed that he was fine in the American school system, and is fine at Villanova right now. And he's ruled ineligible for what? I'm not really sure what to make of this. And quite frankly, I'm not really sure why he's ineligible. But as the games roll on, it's increasing the likelihood that he'll end up redshirting, because why would you burn a year where he straight up can't play? But the NCAA was quick to appeal, like the appeal that Villanova had, they denied very quickly. There's something here that they don't like, and that doesn't meet their requirements or whatever, because this was a very quick denial to the appeal that Villanova sent in. So sucks to see this happen to a young player, but I feel like you put your faith in the NCAA sometimes, and it's kind of a slippery slope. I don't think that's a really good way to do things. So Matt Hodge, not look, it's kind of looking grim as if he is going to suit up for Villanova this year. Moving on, so Eric Acker allegedly had an eligibility issue of his own at LaSalle. He is going to make his season debut at the Big Five Classic on Saturday, December 7th. So LaSalle, they beat Drexel, which we'll get into. So they're 1-0 in pod play. They're going to face Temple not this weekend, the weekend after at Glacier Arena. So they could be playing for the first place game, or they could be in the third place game for the second season in a row. But Eric Acker going to make his debut that day. So we'll potentially see LaSalle in the Big Five Classic Championship game, and we're going to see one of their prized possessions in the portal potentially playing as well. Was the youngest player in Division One last year at Long Island. Their leading scorer, very good player, very good scorer. He'll help out. He will absolutely help out, and we're going to be able to see him. It was kind of like, I was there opening night, and he wasn't suited up. Wasn't really sure why. There wasn't a press release about it, but he's going to make his debut December 7th after whatever was going on with him has been cleared. Then one more for you, Kyle. Big Five Hall of Fame nominees announced for this year. They'll be honored at the Big Five Classic just as they were last year, so we'll roll through the names. LaSalle, Dr. John Giannini, who was just on the broadcast of last night's Penn Villanova game on Peacock. He's going to be inducted for LaSalle. Lakeisha Eady from Temple will be the Owls inductee. Courtney Mix, a women's basketball player at Villanova. Amy Facer from St. Joseph's. Ira Bowman from Penn. And then, of course, they always do a media member. And shout out to Mike Jensen. He was honored at halftime of I believe was it halftime? Or maybe just before the game of Penn Villanova at the Palestra last year. They gave him a plaque at the Palestra, which is a really classy gesture. I know he just retired last season, but he is going to be the media member inducted in the Big Five Hall of Fame. He's already on the walls in the Palestra in the media section, so now he's a Big Five Hall of Famer. So a pretty good nomination and a pretty good honor for him. Yes, clap it up for Mike
For
Jensen.
all of them, for all of
Lengthy,
them. But
yeah,
yes, Mike Jensen as well, of course.
yeah, for everybody. But yeah, so Big Five Hall of Fame nominees honored at halftime or honored at the Big Five Classic. That is this year's class. And with that, Kyle, let's talk about some games.
Let's talk about some games. And also, yeah, shout out to the Big Five Hall of Fame inductee class this year. Obviously, great accomplishment. So, all right, Cope, let's go over some winners and losers from the last week and a half or so. We obviously had some Big Five games. We had some pod play. Still one game left, which we will go over at some point here soon. Um, but there's a lot to go over right now. So let's go over this now. Cope, give me a couple winners from the last week and a half or so that really stood out to you.
So I'm going to go St. Joseph's, but I'm going to go Rasheer Fleming as well. St. Joe's, they take care of business in the Big Five. They win a very closely contested game at Hagen Arena over Villanova, and then they took care of business at the Palestra, really handling Penn in that game Friday night. But Rasheer Fleming, he got in foul trouble in the Villanova game, was still their leading scorer, was tied for the lead as far as scoring goes um, against Penn, but 19 points, 5 boards, added 2 blocks against Villanova, 6 for 6 from 2-point range, knocked down all 4 of his free throws. Like he looks bigger, he looks bulked up. I made sure I asked him about that when we interviewed him in the summer, but he looks bigger. He's still very good defensively, knocking down threes a little bit. He really is doing it all for St. Joe's. I mean, he really, you could argue, is the best player for both of those Big Five games. So I'm gonna roll St. Joe's as a winner because hey, they're 2-0 after the loss of Central Connecticut State, a big win over Villanova. Not only are they 2-0 after that loss, 2-0 in Big Five play, they find themselves in the championship game again. But I gotta say Rasheer Fleming as well. Like I think he's like very much so going to get drafted. He looks even better. He has continually been a guy on the rise for St. Joe's ever since he's been there. Continues to get better in all areas, and On some nights, on a team that has Eric Reynolds, on a team that has Xavier Brown, on some nights, Kyle, he is their best player out there. Adding just another, infinity stone, if you will, to St. Joe's team. But good week for the Hawks, 2-0, and 2-0, of course, in the Big Five. And Rasheer Fleming putting up some numbers, but being a guy that led his team to 2 wins as well. So I'll go those two for right now. Very impressed with Rasheer Fleming, but the Hawks still.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I'm going to go with the LaSalle Explorers for my winners of this week. And I think in particular, I would love to talk about Corey McKeithen. I would love to talk about Demetrius Lilly. Jaleel White as well. I know we talked about him last episode, I think, too. But those two in particular have been awesome. McKeithen, guard coming over here. He was 10 of 19 in the Cornell game, good for 25 points. He was 7 of 18 in the Drexel game in a close win there. Was he the one who had the effort play that got it to Demetrius Lilly at the end? I think it was.
Yeah, he set up Meach at the end for the
Yes.
Drexel game.
I know we were out for that one, but yes. Impressive there. Obviously, you know, Drexel, credit to them coming back in that game as well. They were down 12 at halftime. Came back and made it a game. Ultimately, LaSalle ended up winning, so they are 1-0 in Big Five play. But LaSalle's been impressive. Have not lost yet this year. They're 4-0 wins over American, Lafayette, Cornell, and of course Drexel, like we talked about. So maybe not like the absolute best competition that they played so far. But you got to beat the teams in front of you. We talk about it a lot with teams that, maybe struggle. I know you mentioned Central Connecticut State beating St. Joe's. Obviously, Villanova's lost a couple of games to teams that they should have beat. So, go to the Explorers for beating teams in front of them, especially in a close game against Drexel coming back from blowing a lead and showing some fortitude there. But really, Corey McKeithen, I think, is the big story. He's shown some real promise being a lead guard for them. Obviously, with the departure of Brantley and Brickus, as we've talked about plenty this offseason and the first episode of this season, well, big shoes to fill. And we know that they are going to be filled long term by Deuce Jones, the freshman who's had pretty good starts so far too. But Corey McKeithen's really stepped up and been a main source of scoring for them, and it's been great to see. And Mitchell Lilley as well. I believe he had 18 and 11 against Drexel. He has been a force down low for them as well, and something that like they didn't really have the last couple of years. I know they had Rokas Josic, who good, talented, definitely a different game though. A little bit skinnier, a little bit scrawnier. Also could step out a little bit further too. So Mitchell Lee's been very, very impressive as well. So this LaSalle team has been surprising, impressive so far, and definitely my winner of this last week and a half. And they will be going into a very, very key matchup, which we will get into a little bit later. It won't fall in this window of this episode, but obviously we'll be talking about LaSalle Temple to come. Cope, I guess I'll start with the losers for this episode, and it breaks my heart to do this because we love the Quakers, but it is unfortunately the Penn Quakers. By default, it has to be. I mean, they had a tough loss to Penn or to St. Joe's, excuse me, where they were down a lot of the game, down big a lot of the game. They ended up being better than the final score indicated, 86-69. I think at one point it was well over 20. Um, they just got outclassed by a team that is much more talented than them. And sucks to see, especially on the Palestra floor. I know on the spaces also we talked about kind of how there wasn't the best turnout at the Palestra for this game, which is a different discussion for another day. But they just they didn't have it that one. And then Cope on Tuesday night at the Finn, they really didn't have it. First 11 minutes looked promising. They tied Villanova at 26. I think they were either coming out of timeout or they just gone into the under 8 timeout and it was still tied and things were promising. They were battling. Both teams were hitting a high percentage of shots. They looked good. Villanova continued to hit a high percentage of shots, and Penn did not score a point for 10 minutes and 37 seconds of game time, and not a field goal for over 13 minutes of game time, I believe it was, which included halftime. So, Cope, I am no mathematician. I am no rocket scientist. However, I do know that if you can't stop the basketball from going in on the other end, and you can't score the basketball on your end, things might not go well for you. And they did not, and they lost by 46 points, 44 points. I can't do math, but it was 93 to 49, 49. Am I dumb? I might be dumb. Anyway, yeah, 93 to 49. I have it right in front of me. Anyway, math's not my strong suit. Like I said, you just got to give me a minute. But it was rough. It was rough. And credit to Villanova. They played a great game, but like this is the game that they were supposed to have. This is what they should have done, maybe to a lesser extent against Columbia. But this was a team that you see that should have dominated in this game, and they did. But for Penn, I mean, it's just like it stinks because as we talked about preseason, I know you can touch on this too, that you thought that they were gonna have a decent year and Steve Donahue was going to be the Big Five Coach of the Year, and some of the talent coming in thought it would be a little bit better. It hasn't been the case so far, and it's only November. It's going to take some time, but against the higher competition that they have played so far, it has been really ugly for Penn, and against the competition on their level, it's been very close games. So I think that kind of is a telltale sign of where this team might be at right now in the season. Now, they don't play for another week or so. So, as Steve Donahue said in the press conference, he's going to essentially instill another training camp and they're going to play very, very hard in practice and they're going to get things right because, as he said as well, it's better to have these games in November than it is in January, February when you're thinking you might be good and you're not actually. So, I guess that's a silver lining, but unfortunately, Penn is my loser of this week. So, Cope, to you now. Who disappointed you this past week?
So I'd actually have to go with Villanova if we're talking about the last week, because you talk about not only their loss to St. Joseph's, but I was watching their game on Friday down in Baltimore. I wasn't there, but I was watching on TV against Virginia, and Virginia shot the lights out against them. And I look at Virginia, and last year they're two different teams. There's a lot of new players. It's a new coach with Tony Bennett stepping down and Ron Sanchez stepping in. But I felt like last year I was like, besides Reese Beekman, like who creates offense? Like who beats somebody? Who can create their own shot? And I look at this team and like they have some guys that can really shoot, but I still don't think they have somebody that is blowing by defenders and kicking out and stuff like that. Now they still play very slow, but they're slow, deliberate. They take the shot clock down. They'll swing the ball around. You're going to defend a lot of screens, a lot of actions. And Villanova just didn't have it for this game. They just didn't. They didn't defend the three-point line well at all. Isaac McNeely did not miss from three in this game. He was 6 for 6. And there's one guy on Virginia who you can't let shoot, and it's Isaac McNeely. And again, offensively, like Brickus goes to the bench. They didn't look like they were at their best, but 14 to 25 from the three-point line. And keep in mind, Virginia took 49 shots in this game, and they had 25 makes. So 14 of their makes from the field were from three, and over half their shots were from the three-point line. And they just couldn't get it right there. And you look at turnovers, and look, here's the thing. Villanova only one more turnover than Virginia at 13. Now, unfortunately, that's above their average, at least going into that game for the season. But here's the thing. When you play against a team like Virginia that plays so slow, your turnovers get magnified that much more in a game where you lose by 10. And I know it's only one more, but when possessions are at a premium and you're not playing against a team that's running up and down and you're having more possessions, like your faults just get exacerbated that much more. So, another game where it's like, hey, you Poplar has 7, Brickus is 7. There's only one other person besides Dixon. That was Longino, who was 4, 12, and 10 points in double figures. Where's the scoring going to come from if your catalysts like that aren't going to bring it? They only get 10 points from the bench, 8 of which came by way of Tyler Perkins. Like, it's nice they won the game against Penn. They should have won that game. But I look at like, hey, St. Joe's pretty good team, Virginia pretty good team, ACC team, and they were 0-2 in those if they want to get an at-large spot, which, that line is thin right now. But defensively is like where Villanova's worried me because they've been good in Kyle Neptune's first 2 seasons. And if they're going to have performances like this where they don't defend the three-point line well, like that really was the game right there. And they ended up losing to Virginia to fall to, 1 and or 2, it was 2-2 at the time, but 2-3 at the time. So I know they won. They're not going to be in the 5th place game. They'll be in the 3rd place game. But that Virginia game for Villanova worried me from what I saw. A team that played slow and the 3-point defense wasn't there. You have to be disciplined on defense, like playing so far into the clock, and just wasn't there for them. So they did win against Penn. They won a Big Five game for the first time in the new era. But
Yep.
I'm going to say they're a loser as well. I expected some more from them.
Yeah, and that's fair. And it's kind of something I noticed a little bit in the Penn game, even though obviously they ended up dominating and the offense and defense looked much better in that game. Obviously, I don't know if that's more so a byproduct of Penn not being the greatest quality opponent or them actually playing their better game. I think it was a combination of both. But I think one thing that might be a problem with Villanova is they haven't, and again, very early in the season, but they have to establish the identity on offense and what that's going to look like with some of the new pieces. Obviously, you're going to go through Eric Dixon, you're going to go through Luka Poplar, but new player. Jameer Burke is going to facilitate, and he had his best game as a Wildcat against Penn. 16 points, 8 assists, plus 35 on the game, which is insane. Second to Tyler Perkins, who was plus 40. But these are just things that they're going to have to figure out. So I guess in the words of Steve Donahue, maybe it's better that they're losing now too, because hopefully they can figure it out for later in the season. But it's definitely concerning what's happened so far against teams that are of a more quality. So thank you for giving us your disappointment loser of the week. Don't mean to slander people, but unfortunately we have to keep it real. This
We
is what we
don't want to
do.
do it. We don't want to
We
do
don't
it.
want to do it, but
We give winners, we got to give losers. Got to give them
gotta
both.
give losers. And listen, if you don't want to be on a loser, don't give us that option. Don't
Yeah.
give us that. It's like when a pitcher gets mad at someone for pimping a home run in baseball. Don't let up a homer.
Don't let them
I
home.
don't know. I don't
Yeah.
let up a homer.
You get mad when
Ah,
somebody scores in football, like they're up 3 touchdowns, just 2 minutes left. Stop.
stop him. Gotta stop. Exactly. Same thing. All right, moving on. We got some games to go over that are going to be happening in the next week or so. Cope starting with, and I do want to talk about this first game, and I think you know we're going to go with this. Very quality matchup, maybe the biggest test that anyone in the Big Five has faced so far this season, and that would be St. Joe's 9:30 p.m. Thursday night in the Legends Classic going up against Texas Tech, who is not ranked in the AP poll, but they are currently ninth in KenPom. Very, very good basketball team. Again, very early on, they haven't really played a ton of opponents that are quality. Bethune-Cookman, Northwestern State, Wyoming, and Arkansas Pine Bluff. But they currently are number one in effective field goal percentage in the country. They're number seven in 3-point percentage, number four in 2-point percentage, excuse me. This has the makings of a good basketball team this year and a team that will be ranked at some point. They're 4-0, obviously. This will be a tough matchup for St. Joseph's. So I do want to get your outlook on this one in particular, and then we can kind of go through a little bit of the rundown of some of the other games, because also there will be another game that they play in the Legends Classic on Friday potentially. So I'm gonna let you go over that too as well. But what are your expectations for, like I said, arguably the toughest test for any team so far in the Big Five?
Yeah, well, I think it is. I think this is the best team that a Big Five team has played so far in the early season. But they haven't played anybody, so there's a step up for going to St. Joe's, who's 102 in KenPom, an A10 opponent. They played Bethune-Cookman, they played Northwestern State, they played Wyoming, which oddly enough, Jeff Linder, who was the head coach at Wyoming last year, is now the associate head coach at Texas Tech, and he took a job. He took the job doing that. I think it was for about $500,000, but it's weird with NIL and transfer portal. I think there's some coaches that are like, do I want to stay the head coach at a Mountain West program that like might have trouble competing, or like, do I want to be an associate head coach that might accelerate? If I want to be a Power Five head coach, like maybe this is the best thing for you. You can be the number two at a big time program. You're still going to compete. You're still very high thought of. So kind of a funny little thing there with Wyoming and Texas Tech. But yeah, this team hasn't played anybody. So it's good. St. Joe's is definitely a step up for him. But I think the clash in styles is gonna make the game here, because Grant McCasland, whether he's at North Texas, he's in his second year at Texas Tech, they slow the game down. They play at a snail's pace. This game is going to be limited possession wise. And if you're going to be St. Joe's and you're going to put up threes very quickly in the clock, like you need to make sure you're taking good shots, because every possession is going to matter in a game with a team that plays this slow. So this team is really good. This Texas Tech team, they brought in some really good transfers. JT Toppin from New Mexico. I mean, this is one of the, like, if you look at all the efficiency ratings, this is one of the best players in the country, and he's one of the best guys on the glass on both ends. 15th in offensive rebound percentage, 54th in defensive rebound percentage. Really good one-on-one matchup with him going up against Rasheer Fleming and having to play against the bigs of St. Joe's. But I mean, you look at JT Toppin and you look at Rasheer Fleming, like Kyle, those are two guys you might see get drafted. If not this year, maybe another year down the line. Like these are two legitimate NBA prospects in JT Toppin and Rasheer Fleming. So good one-on-one matchup there. But this Texas Tech team, they play slow defensively. They're not going to give out the middle of the court. And they got some good defenders on this team as well. Chance McMillan from Grand Canyon came over not last year, the year before. Not only is he knocked down three-point shooter, he's a very good athlete on the perimeter. They brought in Darion Williams from Nevada, who's a good perimeter defender. Like, this is a team that they're not huge, but they do have some bigs, Toppin being one of them. They brought in Federico from Pittsburgh as well, excuse me. So I like the personnel they have. They have a couple shooters in McMillan, who I mentioned, also Kerwin Walton, who was at North Carolina once upon a time ago. But this is a very quality opponent. It's a Big 12 opponent, and I think the style is what's going to be interesting here. If St. Joe's is going to make threes, potentially Texas Tech could be in trouble. If you remember, this Texas Tech team, they played Villanova at the Battle for Atlantis last year. And Villanova was just making everything.
Yeah.
It's a slow game, but they were making everything from three, and they ended up blowing them out. So this is the best opponent a Big Five team has played. Again, I think the style, St. Joe's, let's play fast, let's bomb threes, and then Texas Tech that, hey, like we're going to keep you on the perimeter. We want you to we want you to take long shots, low percentage shots. It's going to be an interesting dynamic here. I will personally take Texas Tech because Grant McCasland's got tournament pedigree. This defense works, and I think like, it's a very good opponent. There's no shame if St. Joe's can't win, but there's a monumental opportunity for them to build an at-large berth. So huge game for them. I'm going to roll Texas Tech here, but I'm telling you, look at that slow pace Texas Tech wants to play at, the speed at which St. Joe's wants to play at. That's the styles that are going to make the fight here.
Yep. And styles make fights. That's what everybody says. True for boxing, true for college basketball, true for any sport. So it'll be a good watch. Like you said, the biggest test for anybody so far, especially for St. Joe's, a team that hopefully will be able to get an at-large bid come March, and this would be a huge win. Even though it's early and the level of the win or loss could change in terms of, how people rank it, but I think that this Texas Tech team will be pretty good all year. Maybe not be as quite as high as they are right now. They're not going to play the Bethune-Cookmans of the world all season. They're going to play in the Big 12. Pretty good conference, you haven't heard. So this is going to be a good test. I do think Texas Tech's going to win because, like you said, the style makes fights. Even if you just go off of the three-point shooting for Texas Tech seems to be light. It's out this year. And as we know, the three-point defense of St. Joe's can be suspect at times. So I think even based off of that, but also the pace of play as well is a big factor. And yeah, I'm gonna go with Texas Tech as well on that one. All right, Cope. Some other listen, we're getting into the nitty-gritty right now. Dare I say that we are arriving on feast week? We're not quite. We're not quite, but some of these non-conference tournaments are starting right now. Starting with the Legend Classic, of course, on Thursday, but you also have the Boardwalk Battle, which LaSalle is playing in. First, they have UC San Diego, and then TBD is there as well. St. Joe's TBD opponent on Friday in the Legends Classic. But then you've also got the Hall of Fame tip-off with Temple playing Florida State on Friday at 5, and they're playing UMass Saturday at 5. Drexel, not in a tournament, but they're playing Fordham on Friday as well. And then if you get further into the weekend, you've got Villanova taking on Maryland at the Prudential Center Sunday at 1. And then I'm not sure if this next episode is going to release on Monday or Tuesday. This one's coming out Thursday the 21st, but the next one Monday or Tuesday. And then you got Drexel playing at Daytona Beach, Florida, and they'll have either Purdue Fort Wayne in their first game, and then they'll have either Chicago State or Radford in game number 2 on Tuesday the 26th. So we're not going to bid you guys happy Thanksgiving just yet because we're going to talk to you again before then. But a lot of interesting games coming up here. So, Cope, I guess just, of those games that I mentioned, we're not going to go over all of them, but maybe one or two matchups that you like that you're going to be watching this weekend and the very early part of next week.
Yeah, well, I would try to get up to the Prudential Center for Maryland Villanova. I would like to savor in a football Sunday as the season starts to come to a close here. And I can obviously just watch on TV. Plus, having a battle of Jersey traffic on a Sunday doesn't seem very fun to me.
No.
But that's a game I have circled. Maryland coming in at 30 on Ken Palm, even though Kevin Willard the other day said Ken Palm's full of shit sometimes because they just beat Canisius yesterday, Kyle. 108 to 37.
Oi,
Yeah,
oi.
71 points is quite the blowout. But it's a Maryland team defensively scoring high marks right now. They got a freshman, Derek Queen. This dude is a rebounding monster. He can handle the ball. He's smooth for a 6'10 freshman. This guy does some things that you don't see very often. They got some size. What they don't have, Kyle, is 3-point shooting. So it's a team you have to be disciplined on, keep them out of the paint, do your best to keep the Derek Queen and the big fella Julian Reese out of the middle. But it's just not a team that has a lot of 3-point shooting. The bigs, Derek Queen hasn't had a make on the year. Julian Reese is not a 3-point shooter. They bring in Jacoby Gillespie from Belmont. He's shooting 40% right now. Rodney Rice, who they have from Virginia Tech, shooting over 40%. But that's it. Selton Miguel from South Florida, who we previewed last year when he played for the Bulls. He's a senior who can score a little bit. They have Deshaun Harris-Smith, who's a nice sophomore, who's expected to take a leap. But there's not a lot of shooting, but there's some good guards. There's some experience, some length. Like there's some stuff to like here with Maryland. But I think that could be a thing. It's like, hey, Nova, if you can knock down some threes, you're playing against a team that can't. Threes more than two. I think I would like Nova in that matchup, but I just don't know. Like Nova hasn't won a game where they've had to step up and comp here. So you're adding a Big Ten team now. Kevin Willard going home to the Prudential Center where he coached for quite a few years when he coached the Pirates of Seton Hall. So that's the one I have circled. Would be a nice opportunity for Villanova. It's a toss up. It's a toss up for me. I'm not a huge Kevin Willard fan, but
Really?
think I trust Maryland a little bit more than I trust. I certainly do, even though I'm not really a Willard guy. But yeah, that's the one I have circled. It's kind of tough getting into the. First of all, like LaSalle's going to play tomorrow on Baller TV at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like it's like a feast week tournament that's not a feast week tournament because it's not really the week of, and who knows?
It's like the pre-feast week. It's like the conference tournament of feast week, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Also, did you see St. John's Baylor gonna? Did you see the setup at Baha Mar?
I did not.
It's like college basketball being played like during Thanksgiving in a
Oh, the
hotel
ballroom.
ballroom is it's
Yeah, I
so
did see that.
it's so cool. The ceiling's low, like they have to put the bleachers in. It's
It's
pretty cool. It's
insane.
funny.
It's an
It's funny.
insane thing.
But
Um,
yeah, Nova not going to the Battle for Atlantis. I guess Newark, New Jersey. I guess Newark, New Jersey it is, buddy, for the
Newark, New
Prudential.
Jersey it is then, champ.
Yeah. But that's to me the most intriguing matchup. Like I'm not gonna sit here and try to sell you on Drexel playing Purdue Fort Wayne or LaSalle playing UC San Diego at 1 o'clock when I'm on my lunch break.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick the high major game.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. Listen, fun fact though that I did see about the Big Ten today. So Big Ten, they have no teams in the top 20 of Ken Palm, which is kind of crazy because obviously, elite conference, they're ranked third in Ken Palm as a conference. And then they have 11 teams between 21 and 40. It is an insane model of consistency so far for the conference. Obviously, only a couple weeks in, but don't think I've ever seen that before. So that is a very, very interesting little caveat about the Big Ten. Might
Yeah.
change this
Let
season,
me
might not.
Can I play devil's advocate a little bit? Like, I love Oregon, but they played UC Riverside, Montana, Portland, and Troy.
Yeah.
Penn State is, unless they're actually playing Purdue Fort Wayne tonight. Unless they're losing to Purdue Fort Wayne right now, they've played Virginia Tech, who doesn't really have a point guard in Heisler Miller's absence. They've played St. Francis, UMBC, Binghamton, smashed all of them. Besides Virginia Tech, the highest Ken Palm team of those three, UMBC, St. Francis, Binghamton, is 312.
Yeah.
That's why they're 33rd right now, and they've hung 100 on two of them. They put
Yeah.
up 86 minimum every game and 200s. Like, wait till we get into conference play.
Oh, 100%. I will say though, I do have a little something on Oregon conference. We'll sneaky pick. I think it's possible. Listen, Daniel
It is.
Altman, we both love him. He lines those Rubik's cubes real nice. Uh, Also, it's just weird to see Oregon in the Big Ten, but that's a discussion for another day, and UCLA, obviously. Um, but regardless, a fun fact that I did see about the Big Ten and Ken Palm, so that's interesting. And Cope, I got to agree with you. I mean, as much as I want to talk about some of these other games. Legend Classic, obviously we talked about. Temple, Florida State, and Temple, UMass should be decent. I'll definitely be tuned in to see what the results are of that game because I think it's a decent litmus test for the program. But outside of that, I can't say I'm all that excited about some of the games that are coming up in the next 5, 6 days. Can't say that I am. So uh, yeah, I don't really have anything else other than that. But listen, we're getting into feast week. It's starting a little bit this week with some of these tournaments. Next week, at least for the Big Five, isn't all that fruitful. I know we talked about Drexel playing down in Daytona. Got a couple home games for St. Joe's and Villanova, and then Thanksgiving. But after that, Cathedral Classic starts for Penn. Um, we got Temple of Sal, which obviously we'll talk more about in next week's episodes on the 30th at Glacier, which that might be the most exciting pod play game that we've had so far, even obviously besides the St. Joe's Villanova games too. But that's going to be a really good one. So we're going to get more into that. We're not going to do it right now because there's obviously other games that are going to be happening between the time of this recording, 10 days before that game. So other stuff to talk about that we did, of course, but that's going to be a good one. So yeah, Feast Week starting. All around college basketball. Obviously, it's going to be a ton of tournaments this coming week. Maui's coming up. Uh, Champions Classic, obviously, and all those things. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Did Champions Classic happen already?
Yes. Champions
I was
Classic,
gonna say
exactly.
that's the one that like I know that one's like the first one
Yeah.
of all the major ones. I don't know why. A
Yeah,
lot of them.
Champions Classic. And it's the same four teams, which
Yeah, I
should
know.
Michigan State be in? I mean, you can argue with Wall if you want. I
Well,
don't think they should be,
it's
but
been 25 years since they won a championship, so or
it's
will be unless they
very
win this
fair,
year.
which they're not going to, but very
Great
fair.
respect for the program, but Champions Classic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Although
Let's
Kentucky
let
also hasn't
UConn in.
won.
Maybe we let UConn in. Maybe you reward the champion with a quad one opportunity, and you're like, hey, the reigning champ, you're in this time.
Although I have to say, I think the Maui is a pretty good quad one opportunity.
Oh, 100%. And the
So,
Maui Invitational is like the premier. I got to get out there to Lahaina sometime.
dude, you and me both.
That's the premier one.
Yes.
Like the Big East tournament during conference tournament week is what the Maui Invitational is during Feast Week. Like that is the premier
Yep.
college basketball tournament like during that week. I'm interested to see that this Players Era Festival that St. Joe's is supposed to participate in next year. The
Yeah.
one in Vegas where they're playing for money. I'm interested to see how that works because then they made a change and it's like, oh, we're actually going to do a tournament format and you don't know who your three opponents are going to be as opposed to like you did. Like we'll see how that works out. Maybe that's something that if it's bad, St. Joe's is like, we don't want it. And I don't know. I'm just speculating, but that'll be
It's a year out. We'll figure it
yeah.
out. But all
Well,
right,
yeah,
Cope.
well, it'll be interesting to watch. Sorry.
It will be interesting to watch. No, I mean, especially with like just the ever-changing landscape of all these things. Uh, we've never seen a tournament that's played for money in college basketball before, so this will be interesting. Of course, not this year, next year, but regardless. Cope, we are, I think, at the end here. So, any final thoughts before we sign off and then come back early next week?
Quick question for you, Kyle. Yes or no? Will you purchase an event pass for $5 to watch LaSalle UC San Diego on Baller TV tomorrow?
I will not. I will not. I do, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but I do work for a living. Uh,
Same.
I do work for a living. You work for a living, and also negative interest in purchasing anything from Baller TV.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know how quality of a broadcast we're looking at here. Honestly, Baller TV, Flow Hoops,
I was gonna say, are they underflow hoops?
I have no idea. I hope they're not. But you know what I mean? Any of these like bullshit subscription sites where it's like you're just making it harder for me to watch these guys support them. Like you're
Yeah.
just making it more difficult. Like
I'm
if college basketball sickos like ourselves want to watch, want to tune into a game, like don't make it harder for us to do it. Like just give it to us.
Here's the thing about it, Cope. Like, as much as we like to rant and complain about not just this in particular, but things adjacent to this in all sports and all facets of life, it's a lot easier to forget about it when you realize it's all about this. It's all about the money. And it's any answer to anything like this. Why is it on Baller TV? Why is it on Flow Hoops? Why is everything behind a paywall? It's just money. It's what it is.
But I saw so like the NEC has NEC front row, it's called. Like, is this something that people want? Like, do people pay for this? Like the other day, I saw Big Ten Network, no, Big Ten Plus. I wanted to watch Wagner and Rutgers. Rutgers like ranked in the top 25. Now Ace Bailey didn't play, but like interesting team, a lot of transfers. Dylan Harper's been awesome. They're playing a local opponent. I was like, yeah, let me tune in. Big Ten Plus is $13.99 a month. It's almost the same you pay for ESPN Plus, and you get a zillion times more. Big Ten Plus, I get 18 schools, and if I want to watch big time college football, it's on national TV. I don't need it for football.
So
So I
I
really
will
want to use
say,
it.
oh, I
What?
was just gonna say, like, as someone who works with a company that has content behind a paywall, with the Union, MLS, and Apple, content is also a part of those packages too. So just like ESPN, you get access to 30 for 30s, you get access to all the other like actual, produced
Yeah,
content things.
it's worth it.
Probably something similar is what I'm guessing. So it's not just the games, but I do agree that it can be annoying to try to watch a Wagner versus Rutgers game and it's behind a paywall.
But like, you know what I mean? If that's not broadcasted on a local channel in North Jersey, like I'm sure you had a good amount of people in the Metro New York area that like wanted to watch that game. And what you can't because it's on Big Ten Network Plus for $13.99 a month. ESPN Plus raised the price. I didn't care. It's worth it. Take my money.
Yeah.
But like
Well, you get every game on there.
that I'm not paying for. Like, come on, what are we doing
Well, I'm,
here?
I'm certainly not paying for Baller TV. So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
LaSalle. As much as I would love to watch on Thursday, it's just not gonna happen.
Bring back Reddit NCAA b-ball streams. I
Yeah.
don't know like how that was abolished, but we need to bring that back.
Well, probably because it was illegal, but
Whatever, man. This shit is
probably
illegal. This shit is illegal.
this should be illegal.
Like I would
Baller
much
TV
rather.
and Flow College should be illegal.
Can we just bring the bootleg streams back to put Flow Hoops and Baller TV, get them away anyway.
I know.
I'll stop complaining.
I wish. I wish. But regardless, we will find a way to watch these games somehow. Uh, and we appreciate you guys watching this podcast. That was a hell of a tie-in there. I'm proud of myself for that. But we do very much appreciate you guys tuning into this podcast, listening to us and all the content that we are putting out there. We very much appreciate it. And please continue to do so. Of course, if you want to do so, you can like subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can follow us on social media, particularly Twitter and Instagram, and now Blue Sky. We are on Blue Sky at Big Five Pod, as well as the other channels I just mentioned as well. And of course, if you want the audio only versions of this podcast, you can tune into Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That's Jake Copestick. I'm Kyle Morello. So much more college basketball to come this week, and we'll see you next week.